Okay, here we're going to solve 1 divided by 5y plus 10 minus 3 equals negative 4 divided by y plus 2. This is a rational equation. We know it's rational because we have fractions with unknowns in your denominator. So you need to have variables in your denominator for it to be rational. So the first thing I want to do here is whenever you have a rational equation, go through and check each denominator and see if you can factor, and even check for a GCF. So you'll only do this for the denominators, and it makes it a lot easier to work. So this first term, the 5y plus 10, has a GCF. So you do want to go through and factor out any GCF. And that's all the factoring we can do for this problem. Okay, we're going to come back to this problem and finish solving. But the next thing you want to do with a rational equation is find all excluded values. These are restrictions. So excluded values are values that will cause an undefined expression. So you have an undefined expression whenever you have a fraction with a 0 in the denominator. So we need to find all values of y that will cause any denominator to equal 0 and exclude that from our solution. So what you do, to find your excluded values, you're going to take each denominator and set it not equal to 0. We do not want our denominator terms to equal 0, so we need to find those values that will cause that to happen. Okay? Alright, so let's take the 5 times y plus 2 cannot equal 0. So when you have a product, you're just going to take each factor and set it equal to 0. Okay. Now these two are the same. You don't have to repeat, so we'll just solve this y plus 2 and get our excluded value that satisfies both of those equations. Okay, so y plus 2 does not equal 0. We want to subtract 2 from both sides. So one of our excluded values is negative 2. Y cannot equal a negative 2. If it does, it actually causes an undefined expression. So whenever we solve this, if we get an answer of negative 2, we cannot use it. Alright, let's go back up here. 5 does not equal 0, so we don't even have a variable to solve for in this equation. If you don't have a variable to solve for, just ignore it. Okay, so our excluded value is negative 2. So we're going to check that with our answer, and if we get an answer of negative 2, we cannot use it. It's an excluded value. Alright, let's go back up to our problem. So since we have an equation and we have fractions, we can go ahead and clear our fractions. What we want to do is find a common denominator. Okay, so let's go over here. Finding a common denominator will allow us to get rid of all of our fractions. So take a look at your denominators and include each factor. So we have a 5, we have a y plus 2, and we have another y plus 2, but since we already have it listed here, you don't have to list it twice. So we're going to go through and multiply every single term by our common denominator. So we've got 5 times y plus 2 times 1 divided by 5 times y plus 2. Okay, minus 3 times 5 times y plus 2 equals 5 times y plus 2 times negative 4 over y plus 2. So we're just multiplying every single term by our common denominator. That will allow us to clear fractions. So let's go ahead and divide. 5 divided by 5, y plus 2 divided by y plus 2 is 1, so we're left with 1. Okay, here let's go ahead and multiply. That's negative 15 times y plus 2, and we'll multiply that out in just a moment. Equals, we have a y plus 2 over y plus 2, that cancels out, leaving you with a 5 times negative 4. Let's go ahead and continue multiplying. We're going to distribute. Bring down your 1. That's negative 15y minus 30 equals negative 20. Okay, let's continue solving. So collect like terms first on each side of the equal sign. So 1 minus 30 is negative 29 minus 15y equals negative 20. Then I'm going to move my constant to the right-hand side. I'm going to add 29. Bring down your negative 15y equals a positive 9. Then divide both sides by a negative 15 to isolate your y term. Okay, that negative you can just put out in front. Make sure you reduce 9 over 15. So that's going to reduce down to a negative. 3 goes into 9 3 times, 3 goes into 15 5 times. Always check your answer. If your answer is your excluded value, you cannot use it. But our excluded value is negative 2. Our answer is negative 3/5. So we are good.